I thought I'd take a moment to describe our newest bike, our new Excalibur. We're pretty excited about it. I'm going to go through the differences, the distinctions of it from our Condor and Raptor. There are advantages and disadvantages, as you might imagine, with all of our bikes. I think we've got the three categories pretty well covered. This bike, as you can see, first thing you've probably noticed, has a flat deck. Okay, that's because the batteries, and I'll justify that in a moment, are underneath here in a metal battery box as such. We took a departure from our normal philosophy from the Condor and the Raptor away from lithium ion, and we went to 4 sealed lead acid or SLA batteries. This is a 48-volt bike. It has 4 batteries in series in that metal battery box underneath. Now, why did we depart from lithium ion? Lithium ion is certainly superior in every way, shape, or form. There's no disadvantage to lithium ion whatsoever, despite what people are trying to sell you cheaper made bikes with 4 batteries tell. We went this route because what we've seen on the market is several bikes showing up with a flat deck and the 4 old school batteries in series to achieve voltage. 48 volts, meaning 4 12-volt batteries, which is fine and dandy. The problem is what they were doing is riding our coattails on the Raptor and implying that they're the same thing, i.e. this is a $4,000 bike, but it's half price at the show, or it's half price this week, or because it's Arbor Day, it's half price. It's nonsense. If anyone tells you that a 4 battery bike is a $4,000 bike, well, they took you for let's call it a scooter ride, if you will. Okay, so we intentionally, instead of having to explain that to everyone and have to go through exhaustive education of people, and then they're wondering, well, maybe that salesman's lying, maybe this salesman's lying, we had a great idea. I said, why don't we make a flat deck bike without the hump where the battery's supposed to be, with the batteries underneath, with the 4 inferior batteries. Let's make one to our standards, price it properly, and that will put an end to the whole conversation. Now, that being said, I didn't want to like this bike, but I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with it, and it's a very well-made version of a cheaper way to make a bike. Cheaper meaning less expensive in our case. This bike is, as it should be, rear-wheel drive. Now, here's why. With our Condor and our Raptor being perfectly balanced from front to back, the front weighs exactly what the back weighs. We could take advantage of front wheel drive for maneuverability and performance. Pulling is normally better than pushing. But what we decided was, since this bike and all bikes of this type, which are much heavier in the back because of where the batteries are, not only are the bikes heavier overall, despite what salesmen may tell you, the weight is in the back. So for this to be front wheel drive as our Condor and Raptor would be ridiculous. It would sit and spin, literally, okay? So we made this dual rear wheel drive. We've used very wide, aggressive tires in the back, which are the drive wheels. If you notice, I'm intentionally shooting this video in some very deep, too deep actually, gravel. There's a reason for that. We call this bike the Rock Crusher. And I'll show you in just a moment how this thing performs in gravel, which is a lot of feedback I get even on our lithium ion Condor and Raptor. I get tires spinning gravel. Well, the problem with that is they're giving it too much throttle. That tremendous torque of the lithium ion, it's like when you're driving in the snow, if your tires are spinning, giving your car more gas doesn't make it go any better in the snow. But that being said, instead of, again, having to explain that, for people that do a lot of gravel, like in RV lots driving or off-road, this bike is much more forgiving. We took a shot at making this rear-wheel drive to compensate for the inferiority of the power sealed lead acid versus lithium ion, and quite frankly, it's exceeded our expectations. Take this with a grain of salt. On flat ground, I was a little surprised. Once this thing builds up a head of steam, it's actually faster than the Raptor. But because of something called torque, the Raptor, of course, will get out of the hole quicker and perform better on hills. But let me go over this bike very quickly. Okay, we really went to town on it just to show you what can be done. The retail price on this bike, by the way, is $2,800. And if you just visually come in a little closer, and I want to point out some things, if you just look at this bike, we don't have to explain that someone telling you another bike that they're claiming is $4,000 probably isn't. We added dual front shock absorbers, of course, our standard highway pegs, which are standard on the Excalibur and the Condor. We've also not only given it a front brake, okay, we've given it dual rear brakes. As you see, it has disc brakes on the rear as well as a disc brake on the front. This bike has 3 brakes. This comes in very, very handy for people as they're going down a hill. For people a little less experienced in driving, they can use the foot brake to slow the bike down from the rear. This is also very important. As with all our 48-volt bikes, this has 3 power levels, 1, 2, and 3, to help you control how much power that the bike is getting. You'll notice other things, and this is what I want you to look at, folks. Not just metal baskets and trinkets, okay? That's where people that are trying to propagate a cheap bike, they wag the dog. Look at the welds on this bike. Look at the componentry. Yes, look at the metal basket instead of, so I've seen them with vinyl bags. Well, why did they use a vinyl bag? Because it's advantageous? No, it's cheap. So if that's what you can see, then it begs the question how the rest of the bike is made. Now, also a metal deck, okay? You can see every component on this bike, as with all our bikes, is superior to any component on any other scooter, bike, or golf cart. Now, in rocks, I want to show you the advantage of the rear wheel drive. From a dead stop, you can see how deep these rocks are. Now this bike does not have the turn radius that the Raptor has, but it's still very, very accurate. But quite impressive what it will do in deep gravel or on grass. And we'll take the rock crusher right through this deep stone gravel. And again, what is more impressive is from a dead stop to show you the torque and power of these large tires in the back doing the drive. From a dead stop, how easily you can get going. We're quite proud of this bike. It's turned out very, very well. We did, as our description states on the internet, want to make a lower cost version bike for our seniors and for people who perhaps can't afford the Raptor in the 48-volt realm. Now, this bike will go places such as this that the Raptor will have more difficulty in. However, the Raptor will also go places that this won't, i.e. narrow trails. And I rest assured, the Raptor will climb hills that this bike will not be able to climb because of the front wheel drive. Pulling is better than pushing, and also because of the power of the lithium ion. See, with lithium ion, you get 100% of power on a longer charge cycle. Okay, so the charge lasts longer, but you have 100% power. About 96% of that charge cycle, it'll start to peter out, then it'll stop. That's why power tools and things of that nature, or computers, are all lithium ion and have been for over a decade. Now, this bike, of course, being the 4 batteries feeding together, as you drive throughout the day, it will start to decrease in power. But as with all of our bikes, you will not go through a charge in a day. So there's a point, where is it overkill? The Raptor, you could go 3 or 4 days on a charge. We don't make a bike that's going to leave you stranded or not take you where you need to go. So this overall, this Excalibur is a very, very good choice for people, especially for gravel driving, especially for the less experienced drivers, as well as for people who perhaps who are larger. Okay, I'll buy into the fact that for some, very few people who cannot lift their leg because they're debilitated over the hump of where the lithium ion battery is, this is ergonomically a bit more comfortable for them, or for people that are a bit larger. And it makes sense because people that are that debilitated normally aren't really seeking power, you know, or performance, I should say. This bike has a ton of power, more than any other bike except for our Raptor, but it is much more forgiving and easier to drive. Now, it also, I will tell you, disadvantage. This bike weighs 125 pounds. Our Raptor weighs 65 with the seat removed, all things being equal. If anyone tells you that a 4 battery bike weighs less than 100 pounds or less than 110 pounds, again, you're being taken for a scooter ride. That being said, it is heavier, it's a little bit larger, so transportation is a factor. 2 of these will not fit in the back of a hatchback, as do 2 of our Raptors or Condors. However, somebody that has a pickup truck or only needs 1 scooter, this is a fine option. Keep in mind, you're not lifting 125 pounds any faster than you're lifting as an individual 65 pounds. In both cases, I advocate you ramp them up into the back of your hatchback. This bike does fold. The seat comes out beautifully like that. This is removed, and of course, this is the same mechanism we have on all our bikes, where the handlebar folds over. Okay, let me get that off of there. This is removed, and this whole section cams back onto itself, and it makes a box about this high. So 1 will fit in any hatchback, but not 2. So there are the distinctions between the bikes. Again, this is a lower cost bike made to our standards that, quite frankly, outperforms even our Raptor in soft gravel. I hope you picked the right bike. Thank you for listening.